Hello there, and welcome to Diamond Abbey Speaks platform. Of course, it's Zontable One, Deborah Abbey, sitting right here with my brother for life from another mother. And today we're going to be talking about hot topics. These topics or these conversations are part of the Joy Lives On series that I will be carrying on. Joy, as you know, is my 18-year-old daughter who passed away in April of this year. They said it was cancer, but I don't believe them. However, she passed away on the 28th of April, and I have been looking into cancer treatments, the causes, and what we could do differently as a people, as a generation, as a race, not just black, not just white, not just Hispanic, not just Asian, but the universe itself, what we could do differently about this thing called cancer. So sitting in front of me today is my brother from another mother. I have Mr. Hank Bentley, who is sitting in front of me. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks, Devo.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share personal information. And I think that together our voices is what the masses need to hear.
I agree.
I know that you were recently misdiagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. And you want to tell me a little bit about that? We found out that you didn't have cancer. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Right. So this led up to, or was led up to, just getting routine blood work. And in the routine blood work, they found out that I had elevated red blood cell count. And so they called me in and told me they wanted to do some more tests. So I go back in, did a different test, and then the oncologist calls me in and tells me that she wanted to have a conversation with me. So me and my wife go in there, and tells me that I have a bone disease that causes me to hypergenerate red blood cells, and that I needed to start on a medication that would, slow down the red blood cell and thin my blood out, so to speak. I was then sent to go do routine blood draw, and my wife, after this conversation, was like, "I don't think you should be starting on chemo drugs. Like, we need to get a second opinion." I agree 100%. So she set up an appointment for us to go see a specialist hospital, and when we got down there, they did some more blood tests and then said, no, you actually have polycythemia, which is it's a side effect of testosterone therapy. There's nothing that you need to do other than just make some dietary changes and make sure you're hydrating well, and then continue with your blood donations to keep your blood thinned out. But there's no need for any kind of drug intervention with this.
Wow. So coming from that background and knowing that the doctor before or the physician before had misled you to that point, what is your take on these medications that are quickly prescribed or quickly told to patients to take?
I mean, honestly, it's infuriating, because just me going to the internet and doing very little research, I quickly learned that there is a precursor in your blood panel that if you were to have the bone, disease that she was trying to diagnose me with, that precursor is identified in the blood work, which I didn't see. So when we went to see the specialist, I brought that up to them as a question. Hey, I understand from doing my own research, this is something you typically see when this situation is going on. And so when they tested me, they're like, yeah, we don't see that. So based on that, we have to agree with you. We don't think that that's what you have. To me, I don't want to think the worst of people. So I would like to think that she made an honest mistake. I don't think that she was intentionally trying to do, a money grab from the drug company. But with that being said, even if that's the case, if you're working as an oncologist, you have a duty to do due diligence and research. You have a duty to find out what I could find out on the internet on my own, not being a medical professional.
Absolutely.
And you have a duty to run through those trials to try and use some deductive reasoning to get to a different answer.
Drugs.
Right. It's not to just issue drugs off the bat to get this under control. Let's first identify what other possibilities we have, right? So to me, it's irresponsible, honestly.
I think that there's a misuse of pharmaceuticals personally, and people are too quick to, especially if you have good insurance, people are very quick to, most medical professionals, they may not use the word people, most medical professionals are quick to prescribing medication or pharmaceuticals as a cure or as the fix it, as it were, for anything, not just cancer, for anything. So let me ask you one question. Thank you for answering that one. The next question I had in my mind was, cancer. What do you think is the cause of cancer? The causes or possible causes of cancer?
Right. So I think that undeniably there is some genetic precursors to cancer. I think that there are situations where specific types of cancer can be found in family lineage, and such is the case with my own family. But I think there's also environmental factors that can exacerbate that. And I think diet is a huge part of it, especially in the United States. When you look at some of the carcinogenic research that's been done on stuff that's in our diet that has been banned in other countries where the ingredient lists are completely different, or specific food items are just banned in their entirety, and then you look at that as being a part of our daily diet here, that should raise an eyebrow. Secondly, the environment to involve petrochemical, hazardous chemicals, the air we breathe, all of that I think plays a role. Then there's some people who could live a healthy lifestyle and eat properly and exercise and still get cancer. I think that's unavoidable. But I think that there is a large portion of this that could be mitigated with better lifestyle choices.
Absolutely.
And I think if you reach the point where you do find yourself in need of care, there needs to be a more holistic approach to the healing process. It shouldn't jump straight to treatments that basically destroy your body. You need to have some sort of alternate treatment that's to strengthen your body and give your body the chance to fight whatever the ailment is naturally. Because if all you're doing is just poisoning your body, poisoning your body, poisoning your body. It should not be a surprise that the end outcome is
death.
Yeah.
Is death. So I just want to piggyback on what you said about nutrition or food or the intake. I think it was Hippocrates or whoever the first doctor was in the universe. Please.
The Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah. I think he said, let your medicine be your food and your food your medicine. Right? What I noticed when Joy was sick and was in the hospital was that the nurses made sure that Joy took her medication. They were on it, bang on it. They were just doing their job, I know that. But there was no nurse or doctor that made sure Joy ate or looked or examined at what she was eating before she took the medication. And I say this because even when we drink alcohol as kids or young people were playing, we always found peanuts, something to eat. Your mom would say, make sure you eat before you take that medicine. Make sure you have some kind of a kush before you take that medicine. So it's the truth is that nutrition is not looked at all in the type of treatments that we have presently. It's strictly all about pharmaceuticals. What do you have to say about that?
I would have to 100% agree with you. You know, when my father was going through cancer treatment, you know, he had to show up to the hospital, do radiation, set appointments. He had to take certain, you know, medications, but then he sat home. Well, when you go home after those treatments, that's when you have the fallout of...
You're wiped out.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one that's insuring. So if our medical system is there to provide care, isn't 90% of the care in between these short radiation treatments taking care of your body and taking care of yourself? And to your point, no one's ensuring that that's happening.
No.
You know, my instructions when I talked to the doctor about how to keep weight on him was that he needed to just drink Ensure milkshakes. That's not, I mean, that's one thing to get something in their body, but that's not sustenance.
But the thing is, at the state in which he is, or I didn't see your dad, so I wouldn't know, but I'm looking at my baby girl that at that stage, she didn't have any appetite to eat. Mm-hmm. So I had to force feed her, you know, like to make sure that the food goes in her mouth for her to eat.
Right.
And even with that, after 2 or 3 scoops, she's tired, she's weak, she doesn't want to eat it. The nutrition is what would support, in my view, any pharmaceuticals whatsoever that they're given. And it might actually prolong the person's life. In my view, again, I'm not a medical doctor, but this is common sense. In my place, we say common sense is not common. Let me pick your brain on something else again. What information leads to the treatment that is prescribed?
That's a great question. And again, it goes back to, you know, when, with my own personal experience, and I'll just speak to me because that's what I personally know, is how was it deduced that I was just going to be started on specific chemo medicines without any further investigation, number one. Number two, those drugs are not specific to my specific situation. They're just like a carte blanche. Let's just start destroying stuff, right?
Yes.
And so to me, being an outdoorsman and a hunter, I would say it's a very shotgun approach, right? You're just kind of blasting everything. And I think if you're going to go in and start, you know, issuing people medications, or as a patient taking medications, there really needs to be a more rifle approach. It needs to be a very singular to this specific issue type of approach,
was
not just blasting everything. So when you take a situation where you're on radiation, which is just killing your cells and your hair's falling out. I mean, it's basically killing you, right? You're trying to kill the cancer, but you're killing everything that's healthy as well. And then you start putting chemotherapy on top of it. Well, now you're poisoning your blood, all of your entire system. And so back to the nutrition, what's flushing all of that out? And why are we just blasting your entire body with a myriad of poisons, but we're not concerned about mitigating the poisons to stay healthy, right? So that's where I say, full circle back to your question, how do we know what drugs are supposed to be used for? It's a great question, because I don't even think you could get a doctor on here that says, well, we're going to look at this, that, or the other, and this is treating specifically this, or this is treating specifically that. There's drugs that are used for all kinds of things. I mean, you've got people that are taking antidepressants that can be used for who knows what, and you've got muscle relaxers that are originally for something else, and all these drugs are crossed over to be treating 3 or 4 different things. And to me, that's not proof of efficacy, right? Especially if you're going to be putting poison in your body, there needs to be proof of efficacy.
So that was my problem, my darling brother. I keep coming back to joy. There was some kind of manipulation to make you believe that this pill or this treatment that I'm giving you is the only answer to this problem without any thorough research. So just like you said, they've taught us that we have DNA, right? Fingerprint. If you put your fingerprint on something, there's nobody in the universe that has your fingerprint. So how come there's no medication for that particular fingerprint? But the medication that is given is a cocktail or a combination of poisons that is one size fit all for everybody. So if A comes in, is the same thing, B comes in, is the same thing, C comes in, is the same thing. So there is no proof at all. It is try this, try that, and let's see what works. Meanwhile, the money, it's like cha-chenga, cha-chenga, cha-chenga. The money, I look at a bill and my goodness, $45,000 for a round of chemotherapy. And when my young daughter at 18, sports athlete, buffed, muscle, is given 16 rounds of chemotherapy in less than 7 months. She was diagnosed on the 12th of September. She died on the 28th of April. In 7 months. I could see why that has happened. It is not just, first of all, I don't even believe that she had cancer. I know what I think happened to her. Hank, I believe she had taken the COVID vaccine, and I have her card, I can show it. They gave her the Pfizer 1 and Pfizer 2. And what had happened was she started having muscular problems. First, it was her Achilles tendon. Then it moved up to her calves. She's a sports person. Then it moved up to her hamstring. All this time we're doing like therapy, going to this, massaging, doing that. Then it moved to her hamstring. Then it lodged right here in her back. And they misdiagnosed her forever. I mean, various hospitals, various specialists, they were just telling us first, oh, it could be sclerosis or whatever.
Sclerosis.
I can't say the word. Scoliosis. Scoliosis is the word. It could be scoliosis. No, then it moves. So it's her ovaries. Oh, she has what do you call, urinary tract infection. Oh no, it is monovirus. I have all these different misdiagnoses up until September 12th, when they said that her blood looks perfect. The blood work that she had, creatinine, everything looked perfect. But then it looked like cancer. And for the longest, they couldn't tell us what type of cancer it is. They had to call it a name for them to treat it. I think when they see these images, the medical professionals, when they see these images and things, I think we need to do due diligence and not believe what they're telling us is the answer, because 9 out of 10 times each answer they're giving us is drugs.
And so I'll circle back to what I said earlier. There should be a Hippocratic responsibility of these doctors to do due diligence before they give a diagnosis. There is no reason why you should have 9 or 10 different diagnoses and then ultimately treating her for cancer when they don't even know what kind of cancer it is. What are you treating?
Exactly, that's what another doctor.
That's like treating a diabetic with a candy bar, or you know what I'm saying? I mean,
said.
how do you treat someone with any expected high efficacy rate when you don't know what's wrong with them? So, where does the due diligence come in from the medical field to isolate what the issue is, right? So let's go with what you're saying, that she took the vaccine and these are side effects of what the vaccine caused.
I think that's what happened.
Were they aware of that and they weren't voicing it because of the political socio climate around the vaccine? Or were they unaware of it and just treating her carte blanche with random chemotherapies because they couldn't figure out what it was?
I went and I researched. I was the bad person. The nurses didn't like me. In fact, at a point, Joy herself didn't like me.
Right.
Because I was asking every last question.
But you're her mother. I mean, what mother wouldn't do that?
Exactly.
And I guess that's the point is, as a mother, you're going to do this for your child, right?
Absolutely.
Why, if it is your job in the medical industry, would you not put forth the effort to try and get to a solution for a known problem? If you don't know what the problem is, you shouldn't be poisoning someone.
They poisoned her to death. She died of poisons. But
and because she was so healthy, that's probably why she was able to take so many rounds.
Of it, yes. Another thought that is in my mind is, or that I wrote down to ask you is, are the persons or the individual's details, we've talked about this already, taken into consideration or into account as to the treatment that they're given?
And I couldn't honestly say with an honest face that they are, because again, we're right back to, how are you treating someone when you don't know what is wrong with them? Their details are insignificant, it would seem like, when they're getting a carte blanche treatment for an unknown issue. Or if it is a known issue, are you just giving them a cocktail that's used to treat any kind of ailment and not something that might be more specific to that individual?
They gave her one particular cocktail, 4 cycles. Each cycle is 3 rounds. And in each cycle, or in each round, it had 3 deadly poisons. Okay, I'm not sure if I could remember the names of the poisons: cisplatin, paclitaxel, and gemcitabine. And then I went and I researched these drugs on my own, and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? I wouldn't allow that poison in my body. Why am I allowing these people to put this poison in my daughter? And that was when her hair started falling out. And she did that 12 times, 4 cycles. And the very pain that we came into the hospital with was still present and even worse than.
Do you know what's interesting about that? Is that they're allowed to get away with doing that 12 times.
Yes.
If you bought a brand new car and you took it into the facility to get worked on for the same issue 3 times, there's a law called the Lemon Law that says you can give them the car back because it's a dud, right?
That's right.
How could you get away with giving someone the same treatment 12 times and there's not anything wrong with that?
Yes, and the pain still persists. So they couldn't describe her pain, or they didn't know what was causing the pain. And initially they had said the plan was to do the 12 rounds and then they would go take out the kidney. They said it was a kidney. Another problem also was that the problem was in the kidney, they said. They called it, I forget, I'll come back to it. But then the biopsies were taken out from the liver. So the kidney was never touched, and the excuse was that if they had touched the kidney, she would have bled. It's a very delicate organ and all this. But they were picking out her flesh from her liver for the biopsy. So really, they never went into the kidney. After the 12 rounds, they said a nephrologist was going to cut it out, remove it, and we'll be done. Well, the nephrologist took a look and she was like, no, I'm not touching it. They didn't explain why properly, or maybe I'm just that dud or dumb blonde that didn't understand what they were saying. And they went ahead to switch out the chemotherapy routine. And then a physician came, a specialist came within their cycles and said, no, let's do radiation instead. And then he said that we couldn't do radiation and chemo at the same time. So another doctor came, overrode that, and they were doing chemo and they were doing radiation, which caused other complications, and that's how she passed away. But on her death certificate, you'll see they write, so everybody's like in cahoots. On her death certificate, you'll see she died of renal medullary carcinoma. That's the name, but really she died from
Poisoning.
Poisoning, and all of her internal organs were damaged, and she internal bleeding. When we went there, the doctor that saw her towards her last seconds said she had internal bleeding, but the death certificate said she had cancer. And that, so I don't understand how the immediate cause of death could be that, but that's another topic for another day. So what's your advice, my brother, to anybody at all that has been diagnosed, misdiagnosed, whatever, with cancer? What would you recommend that they do?
I think that situation's different for everybody, but I think that every individual has the responsibility to themselves and their family to do due diligence and research on their own what is specific to their situation, to their disease. I think you look for precursors that are identifiable and try to narrow down a specific to your situation. But I think it's also extremely important that you do some holistic and spiritual blended in there with that, because the fact of the matter is the pharmaceutical companies are pumping you full of poison. There's no way around their treatment unless you look to some other alternative treatments for yourself. And one point that I brought up to you is when my father, when we talk about nutrition, was going through his situation, he was getting emaciated. I mean, he got down to 100 pounds or so. And so we looked at giving him CBD oil. You know, it's a little bit of research we had done showed that there had been some positive effects of CBD on his particular type of cancer. He had non-small cell lung cancer. And so we figured that would help at least give him an appetite where he would want to eat. And then hopefully there would be some good added benefits, you know, from the things that we had seen on the internet. Well, come to find out, it did.
Wow.
So my father had started doing radiation, but he had put off the chemo. He said he wasn't going to do the chemo until he had exhausted some other avenues of more holistic nature. And so he started on the CBD oil, and he was taking full spectrum CBD oil 2 to 3 times a day. And you know, he started to eat a little bit. He started to gain a little bit of weight. When we went back in to see his doctor and get new test results, his metastasized cells had converted back to axon cells.
Wow.
And so the axon cells are, you know, a more normal, stable, healthy cell. So the metastasization, I guess would be the word, they were no longer metastasizing and spreading throughout his body. They had come to a complete stop. And so we're like, this is unbelievable. So he hasn't even taken the chemotherapy piece of this yet. And the only thing that we're really doing is the diet, focusing on what he's eating, the CBD, and then he was doing the radiation, which he had already started. So it seemed like he was going to pull out of this and he was getting better. And then a couple weeks later, he's back in the hospital, can't breathe. He's having, you know, respiratory distress. So we go up to the hospital and look to see what's going on. And it turns out he had blood clots from the radiation. And so even though he hadn't started on the chemotherapy, the radiation is actually what killed him. Death certificate, similar to Joy, died of non-small cell lung cancer.
Absolutely. So there's something they in cahoot with that. Now let me just piggyback on Dad's radiation and blood clot. Joy died of blood clot. She was bleeding through her nose and her mouth when she was on the day that she passed. So once they started the radiation, Joy started swelling. She had a condition called ascites, where there are fluids in her body that wouldn't go anywhere, but it just started gathering on around her stomach. Then her eyes were yellow, jaundice, which to me, common sense, the liver had started to fail. We didn't go to the hospital for a liver problem, but now the liver is failing.
From the poison.
From the radiation. And she had ascites. We had a nurse come home and pull out fluids from her stomach, but we were not replacing the fluids. She couldn't eat, she couldn't drink enough water. She was gonna die anyway. You see? So that radiation was the next question I was going to ask you. What do you think radiation does? What do you think chemotherapy does? I know we've said it's poisons. I know we know that radiation wipes you out. From just looking at Joy's case, between the chemo and the radiation, it wiped out all her internal organs. All of it. All of it. I'll tell you something. So I did an autopsy on her. And the autopsy doctor too is in on this because he had to get records from the hospital and from the specialist. what has the words Joy refused treatment got to do with an autopsy report?
Doesn't sound like she was refusing treatment to me.
So they're all in on this day. I don't want to say they. I think we need to speak out to the people of this world to know that cancer is not a death sentence. Cancer is in everybody. In everybody. And it is it metastatized? What did you say?
Metastasis.
It's benign. It is what? I'm an African woman. I don't understand all that English. Those things happen to those cancer cells because of food intake, the environment, the air you breathe, maybe exposure to poisons, nuclear, whatever, all these things they do to our world, exposure to your 5G, whatever it is, I think is what causes those cells to act the way it does. And when that happens, to me, I think what you were saying, the holistic approach is the only way to go. I would get the medical aspect of seeing inside my body, because we don't see inside the body.
Right.
But once the diagnosis is given, I think the first thing we need to do is address nutrition, address your health, your habits. What are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you getting enough sun? Are you out? These are the things we need to work on more than let's slap them with poison.
Yeah, I think if there was one thing I would like to see come out of that whole situation, because it's frustrating, honestly, to have like the uplifting feeling that there's hope, and then find out that it's actually the medical treatment he was receiving that killed him.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's very frustrating. And so I think that, somewhere there's got to be some responsibility from the medical community to not just put all their eggs in the Pfizer and Moderna basket, right? These huge drug companies who are manufacturing pharmaceuticals from oil-based products, it's just crazy, right? So why is there not more research on historically holistic treatments? Why is there undefined results when you look at these historical
CBD oils and stuff? You check it online,
Right.
It says inconclusive.
Right.
Yeah,
Why
there's
are we
no
still
report on
there
it.
to this day when you have people who get medical marijuana treatments for things? It's readily available for anybody to do studies on it.
There's no
Why are
money
there
in it.
inconclusive results?
There's no
That's
money.
what I'm led to believe,
There's
because
no money in it.
you're not going to charge $45,000 for a treatment of
That's
that
right,
nature.
of a leaf that you can pick in your backyard.
I mean, for $45,000, you could do all of that treatment that you want and have a personal chef preparing you the greatest meals that are going to promote health and kidney filtration and liver filtration and system flush. I mean, for that much money, why are we not getting some sort of treatment in that arena, right? So the insurance companies will pay out $45,000 to get chemo, but they're not going to pay out any money for someone to receive nutritional or holistic benefits.
No.
Why is that?
I think that everybody, the pharmaceutical companies, the governmental bodies that police them, the doctors, the hospitals, you name it, I think they're all, it's like a rink. They're all in connection, if you ask me, with each other. And that's why I brought up the death certificate, and I also brought up the autopsy result. So they're all linked, and nobody wants to not earn or make the money. They rather make the money than do the right thing. And that is where you're saying they need to be held accountable for those things. I think more so is the world should know not to be deceived. not to be deceived, manipulated. You know, like, this is the only treatment. When we went in, they said, this is the only treatment for this type of cancer. You know, or we don't know what it is, but we're going to call it a name so we can start treating it.
Right.
What are you treating?
Yep, I agree with you. And I guess when I say held accountable, you know, there's not lobbyists in D.C. lobbying for people to get funding or change the laws around this stuff. And that's where I see that there's a problem.
The laws need to change, absolutely.
Why do we have foods in our diet that are banned in other countries? Why are they legal here? We're supposed to be, you know, a world leader on this type of
You
subject.
just got into a subject that I love so much. Plant your own food. Don't even worry about what's out there. If you can, just plant your own. And don't buy the seeds, because I have, what I did was I bought the seeds of, from the, I'm not going to call the brands. I try not to call brands. And I went and I got some seeds I planted. And I got some organic seeds as well that came from my country of the same fruit, very fruit. I have a video. You'll be amazed.
Right.
You'll be just amazed. The seeds that I planted grew real fast, and they were like light green in color. And then the seeds of the same exact plant from my country were darker, like hunter green. And then it took a while for it to come out. It wasn't just rapid coming out of the soil.
Right.
So we really need to go out there and plant our own food. I've talked about food and nutrition forever, but it was a shame that I fell on my face when it came to my daughter's illness, with the manipulation, the thought process that I had the answers from this specialist hospital that had a big name. I thought that I had the answers from there. But
and I think that's why it's important what you're doing, because, you know, your interpretation may be that you fell on your face, but I think in reality, you don't know what you would do until you're faced with that situation.
Absolutely.
The problem with that is that you're not faced with that situation until you are.
That's right.
And then when you are, it's like, well, I'm not a medical doctor. I mean, where do we start with this?
Yeah.
You know, and until you've been through it and experienced it, you don't realize that these people are human too, and very prone to mistake, and they don't care as much as you do.
Absolutely.
You care more than anyone else does.
They pretend to care, though. They tell you they care about their patients, but just to manipulate.
And they may to an extent, but they're not going to care like you care.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where the ownness comes in.
Absolutely. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it. You heard it. We're going to take a break and probably come back on another topic. But you heard it from my brother here, Mr. Hank Bentley. We are just sharing our experience. We've lost loved ones. He lost his dad. I lost my daughter. All over what? The big word, cancer. And again, cancer shouldn't kill you. We know what is killing you now. It is not cancer that is killing you. It is the prescribed treatment that is actually killing you in this cancer ordeal. So I pray that a word is enough for the wise, and you will do your own due diligence. Until next time, I want to say thank you to you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and having me nice friends. And I just want to thank my viewers. Stay tuned for more information. Joy lives on. Thank you. Peace.